Chapter 1. The First Signs. Anomaly in the Dying Village. It began not with thunder or a shout, but with silence. The silence of anticipation. The silence of something vast and dreadful, bloating beneath the surface of an otherwise forgettable patch of American countryside. Even the crows, those black commentators of rural decay, seemed to sense it, and took to their nests, wings curled about restless bodies. 1. Shadowland, continued. Jim Doyle, the practical farmhand, later struggled to explain to his wife what he felt that first night. It's like the night grew teeth, he told her, eyes flicking towards the curtained window. Like something leaned over us all and started breathing. She chided him, of course, for fanciful talk, but even as she did, she fought the urge to glance skyward. In bed, holding hands across coarse linen, neither of them slept until dawn, listening for a noise in the heart of the dark that, somehow, both prayed would never come. As days wound on, more residents noticed the world slipping. Charles Macklin, keeper of the only gas station on the county road, fumbled with the till for a full minute before he realized the register's numbers were not wrong exactly, but subtly flickering. He blinked, and they would be fine, but caught a glimpse, now and then, of symbols that weren't numbers at all. I must be losing my mind, he muttered, but made a note of it, all the same. 2. Echoes and omens. With crops failing by the hour, the stench of decay rolled in thick and putrid. The postman, Hank Boone, complained of headaches and strange static coming from his radio. On his last run before all outside mail stopped, he delivered a brown parcel with no return address to the home of Agnes Geller. Inside was a brass compass and a faded hand-drawn map with impossible geometry. Blackwood at the center, ringed by 12 crude glyphs. Written in an unknown hand, "Do not forget the order." Agnes, shaken, took the map to the preacher, who called an emergency town meeting at the Grange Hall. While scared faces lined up, a fight broke out in the parking lot between two men, neighbors their whole lives, who now screamed at each other with bloodshot eyes about noises, trespass, and voices in the wind. As adults argued, the children drew quietly in corners, clutching dull crayons, and always using the same color: blue. 3. The children see. Emma Cooper's parents watched as she grew thinner, silent, her hair somehow paler than just days before. When her temperature spiked, Dr. Kittredge came in person, only to find her bedside ringed with tiny mushrooms and shards of broken mirror. For a moment, Kittredge too saw, out of the periphery, a flicker of something tall, jointless, moon-eyed, standing at the child's window. All through that night, a silvery mist crept through the alleys, pooling beneath windows and swirling in spirals on the porch steps. It set off every car alarm in town, though by morning, not a single car would start. The next day, children turned up on doorsteps with hands stained blue and stories of the antlered watcher in the woods. Some adults dismissed it as fever dreams, but the old folk, those with memories of their own childhood terrors, said, "It's a warning. Leave something, or lose everything." 4. The preacher's revelation. Eli Moran's insomnia turned to obsession. Diving into the town's tiny library by day and tearing apart his own floor at night, he saw visions in every knot of wood. Finally, on the 13th night, prying up another board, he dropped his lantern beneath the house and glimpsed a handprint. Enormous, 6-fingered, burnt into the loam. The earth below shook, groaning, and a voice slithered into his head. not so much heard as felt. "You are out of order." He fell back, heart pounding. Alone above ground, he tried to pray, but the words in his Bible, he would later swear, had rearranged themselves, paragraphs coiling like snakes. "It's in the roots," he whispered into the darkness. "It's in the bones." Preacher Moran began marking every home with a sign from the map, the glyph that matched its direction. Some families resisted, tearing off the chalky symbols in fear. Those homes were the first to report objects missing. Then livestock, then, horribly, entire rooms vanishing. Stairs that went nowhere, doors that, when opened, revealed only a thin, blue mist. 5. The Blue Room. As the maelstrom grew, so too did the legend of the Blue Room. It started with Mrs. Helen Doss, who lost her husband to the night with only a half-heard scream. She swore, weeping to the sheriff, that when she ran to find him, every door she opened led into a corridor of endless blue. Walls, floor, ceiling, glowing like burning frost. Her own house folded into itself, she said, like paper, like a map when you shut it too tight. After her story spread, others, children, adults, even the trio of scientists from the city, spoke in fractured words of glimpses through mirrors or glass, a room where time ran backwards, a boy repeating the same hopscotch rhyme as if on a loop, faces watching from other possible worlds. 6. Visitors in Black. The arrival of the Washington men, slick, silent, soulless, changed nothing, though their presence made horrors feel official. They set up tripods in the intersection, their devices spinning with unreadable dials. Each night, they drafted a new warning, posted on every door: "Do not exit, do not trust the sky, do not look into the blue." One of their group, a bespectacled analyst named Eckers, began questioning townsfolk, recording tales of missing time, shared dreams, and symbols found carved in skin. "You say the pulse began before the crops failed, yes?" he asked the preacher. "And you say the older residents recognized the glyphs?" When Moran replied that the symbols matched century-old gravestones on the oldest hill, Eckers only nodded grimly and jotted a note. Pattern anomaly confirmed. 7. The Night of Wind and Owls. What happened next would pass into local myth, and perhaps, if any survived, national infamy. On a night when the wind keened with the voices of the dead and the stars had vanished entirely, a sudden storm battered the village. Rain fell, but with it came a blue ash, sticky, staining everything it touched and burning skin wherever it lingered. Inside locked farmhouse after farmhouse, people gathered by candlelight and clutched at rosaries, Bibles, and photographs, only to weep as even as they watched, their family albums faded page by page. Babies cried, dogs howled, and somewhere, under the storm, Jim Doyle saw, or thought he saw, an entire barn stretch skyward, its boards unraveling and spinning into the night sky, as if sucked by a vortex. Eckers and his team frantically attempted to broadcast an emergency signal, but their voices only looped back at them, saying things in tones none of them recognized. "It's rewriting," one scientist screamed. "Not us. Everything." 8. The Last Census. Eventually, the town tally shrank. Whether counted in living or memory, each day there were fewer people, and fewer people who remembered those who were lost. Agnes Geller catalogued loved ones' names on a yellow legal pad, scratching them out when her own children forgot their siblings ever existed. "It's pruning the tree," she said, "trimming the past." A final town meeting saw only 16 faces, down from an original 100. "If we cannot leave, Eli Moran said, eyes wild. Then we must try to anchor ourselves. Make records, leave marks, carve our names into stone, if nothing else. So they set about the work of the desperate, etching names onto walls, burning diaries in hope the ash would carry their stories past whatever blue veil circumscribed their world. 9. Nightmares and realities. As the blue light reached fever pitch, a mass dream overtook the survivors, a sweeping vision of reality fracturing, time folding in on itself, and the antlered watcher intoning a liturgy of loss in a dozen dead languages. Each woke gasping, not certain which world they inhabited, or whether any future waited. Dr. Kittredge, skeptical till the end, wrote a final note. If anyone finds this, know that we fought, know that we were here, know that the blue is not a lie but a mirror. What we lost is what we ignored. As she finished, the ink on her paper shimmered and faded. She wept, then dissolved into the air, a single wisp curling from her lips like last breath. 10. The vigil sunrise never came. The pulsing blue over Blackwood grew blinding until it snapped. Utter blackness, sudden silence. The last 16 huddled in Moran's chapel, hands joined, chanting names and stories aloud, voices overlapping and weaving a tapestry of memory against erasure. Outside, they heard footsteps, then the sound of roots breaking free from the ground, ancient, deep, older than the country. A voice, beautiful and terrible, rolled through them, promising ending and beginning, loss and renewal. And then, as always, there was silence again. The outside world, if it existed, would never know precisely what happened. A town erased not by disaster or war, but by a power older and stranger than any law. Yet perhaps, in a blue-misted dawn somewhere, a faint pulse remains, the echo of Blackwood's struggle, a warning, a ghostly trace carved into the fabric of what we call reality. Chapter 2. How Entire Communities Vanish. The Blackwood affair had started with a flickering pulse in the night. Now the plague of the blue had hardened into fate. When the outside world at last remembered this town, there would be nothing left but memories, fragile, riddled with holes, perhaps false. For the survivors huddling in the chapel that final night, the nightmare was only beginning. In this place, the fabric of reality was frayed so thin you could hear the void singing through it. 1. The Vanishing continued. When they awoke, it wasn't to sunshine or even the blue shimmer of doom, but to a cold gray dawn, colorless as old bone. The village was smaller. Streets were gone, folded away like the discarded leaves of an origami puzzle. Less than a dozen souls remained, and even they questioned their own existence, sleepy and unreal, as if at any moment a cosmic hand might simply shake them off the edge of the earth. Preacher Moran was the first to speak. "Count again," he whispered, and the others obeyed, lips trembling with terror. Once, twice, 3 times. They found fewer than before. Names vanished from their minds as quickly as faces faded from sight. Were there 8? 10? Had there ever been more than 7? In Mrs. Geller's pocket, the brass compass spun madly. On the table, her faded map now displayed only blankness. A pale ring indicating the town's heart, everything else lost to fog. Jim Doyle gathered the courage to open the church door. What he saw would haunt him forever. 2. World Without Edges. Where once lay fields, distant homes, and the old willow grove, now only a howling void. Blackwood floated, an island in endless haze, streets curving and warping, cabins half swallowed by blue glowing roots. It was as if a child, bored with a drawing, had simply erased what no longer interested them. Objects at the periphery trembled, faded, and winked out, replaced by a seething nothingness. "The world won't let us leave," murmured Dr. Kittredge, clutching her ruined notebook. "Now the world itself is leaving us." Determined to beat back panic, Preacher Moran rallied the group. "We resist in memory, in presence." He distributed candles, each marked with a name. "As long as these burn, so do our stories." But already the candles flickered, guttering in breaths of unnatural wind from beneath the floorboards. Children tried to play. Their echoes rebounded strangely, as if passing over a bottomless chasm. Agnes Geller desperately repeated her children's names like a rosary, feeling each slip her mind until her voice devolved into senseless humming. 3. Echoes in the archival black. When the survivors attempted to document what had happened, they found paper dissolved before ink could take hold. Cameras produced only blurry smudges. Audio recordings played nothing but static laced with a single repeating phrase, "You are not permitted." Every effort to grasp the moment, every note, every painting, every carved name, was obliterated by the anomaly. Despair set in. Jim Doyle attempted to dig through the chapel floor, fingers bleeding as he clawed at rotted pine and hard-packed soil. Beneath the planks he found another labyrinth, larger, shinier, pulsating, this time with a faintly red glow rippling through the blue. He recoiled, certain he felt hands reaching up for him. Moran, meanwhile, gathered ashes from the burned records and mixed them with holy water. He anointed each survivor's forehead, a mark against forgetting, he hoped, though the moment the ritual ended, he no longer remembered whose faces he'd touched. 4. Messages from beyond time stretched, hours bled into days, or maybe seconds folded into decades. The clocks spun furiously, hands advancing in random spurts, then sinking backward. Shadows fell in wrong directions. The sun rose green and set violet. One evening, Agnes Geller discovered a faint tapping on the back door of her crumbling home. She peeled it open, expecting nothing. Instead, there stood a letter resting on the threshold, old-fashioned and heavy, with her name written in looping script she didn't recognize. She opened it. "If you remember reading this, your world still exists. You must recall it all. Speak the lost faces. Write what you dare, even if the letters fall to dust. The erasure comes not from above, but from within. When all stories are lost, so too will you be. The Watcher has no power over a town that remembers its own wild heart." The letter faded as she finished, but the words were seared into her mind. Agnes ran into the square, if it could still be called a square, and begged the others to join her. That night, they built a fire and told stories by memory alone, naming neighbors gone, recalling lost pets, singing the songs the old men once played on their harmonicas in summer. For a brief moment, the world seemed to restabilize. The blue glow at the edges flickered and drew back. But the victory was short-lived. 5. Apparitions and visitations. On the third day, someone appeared on the edge of town, a child, thin and spectral, not belonging to any memory. The child never blinked, never spoke, simply pointed toward the horizon where blue fog boiled. At first, the townsfolk gathered round, curious and heartsick for the child's sake. But whenever they met the child's eyes, they remembered something new, something that hadn't happened, stories they'd never lived. Soon more figures appeared out of the mist, each more distorted than the last. Beings half glimpsed, bearing strange marks across their faces and hands. wearing clothes familiar and yet completely wrong. They're the lives we never lived, Moran whispered. Echoes of havens that failed. At night, these specters gathered around homes, whispering old lullabies, offering bargains. "Let me in," they pled, "and you will remember your mother. You'll get a second chance." The townsfolk barred their doors, some crying, some secretly longing. 6. Buried Truths. The Great Dig. Driven half-mad with terror and curiosity, the survivors formed a plan. If memory could stabilize their world, perhaps deep memory, buried secrets, could restore things. The group began digging where the old schoolhouse once stood, recalling tales of a time capsule rumored to contain relics of the town's founding. For hours they dug and unearthed objects, a rusted harmonica, a wedding ring, faded letters in German and Polish. Each artifact, when touched, sent a jolt of feeling and memory through the digger. A sudden, fiercely vivid recollection. For a moment, scraps of the world snapped back, part of a barn, a field, a long-lost dog bounding up the road. But the more they remembered, the greater the resistance. The blue fog pressed closer, howling. Agnes saw her own late son in the mist, beckoning. Jim Doyle collapsed, overcome with ancient grief. Dr. Kittredge clutched at a locket, spasming with the pain of her father's dying days, his final words now clear as a bell. "Don't forget me." And then, the antlered watcher appeared again, no longer just a shade in dreams, now fully formed. Towering, terrible and beautiful, it stood at the center of town, antlers scraping the clouds. Its voice, thick as thunder. "You are not meant to restore the ledger. You are meant to surrender." 7. Test of the Ledger. Moran, overcome with fury and faith alike, stood before the watcher and shouted, "We are not yours. This is our town, our story." He thrust the wedding ring skyward. "We remember." The watcher's blue eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly every resident knew every loss, personal and collective, carried in their blood and bone. Names, faces, heartbreaks, first loves, final farewells, pain and joy, woven together. For a heartbeat, the world vibrated, trembling on the knife edge of erasure and existence. "So be it," intoned the watcher, and the world retracted again. The streets condensed, the church, the graveyard, the old well, folding inward. Agnes's locket burst with cold flame, searing her palm, and the night was full of screams, of those who wanted to forget and those who could never. 8. Bargains in the Blue. The survivors retreated to the last remaining building, a one-room shack at the town's heart. Here, the blue fog seeped in through every crack. It whispered deals. "Give me a memory, a precious one, and you may leave," it cooed. "Surrender your father's face, your child's first laugh." One by one, the group was tempted. Doyle, desperate for peace, almost gave up the memory of his mother's handmade quilt, but recoiled at the last second. Others were not so strong. A young woman, unnamed even to herself, traded away her happiest day, and was gone a moment later, vanishing from sight and then from memory, her space in the group collapsing inward. Agnes burned her letter, clinging to her memory by force of will, chanting, "You must recall it all. You must recall it all." 9. Final night. As the last night settled, the group was less than a handful, 5, maybe fewer. It hardly mattered. Faces blurred, names blurred, but the core remained. Moran the preacher, Agnes the mother, Jim Doyle, Dr. Kittredge, and the sound of lost children in the dark. Outside, the watcher paced the periphery, its antlers catching the last vestiges of starlight. Lightning rimmed the sky, silent and furious. The world seemed to buckle, distorting at the seams, like a projection run too long. Moran wept at the altar, repeating every prayer he knew. Doyle scratched names into the wood. Agnes sang a lullaby for her vanished child. Dr. Kittredge stared into a cup of water, watching faces appear and recede with every swirl. The blue fog crept closer, filling the church. "Surrender, memory, or lose self," whispered the wind. "Surrender, or go mad in the twilight." 10. The Vanishing, Absolute. With a final collective gasp, memory loosened its bonds. The candles died in one synchronized breath. The watcher entered the room, bathed in ethereal blue. The final survivors fell silent, knowing resistance was useless. "Blessed be those who remember," said the watcher, almost gently. "But most are not so lucky." A bright light, blinding and blue, enveloped the room. For a moment, every memory, true and false, burned white. Then everything was gone. Epilogue. Whispers in the wind. Weeks, months, or minutes later, time had no meaning, a man in a suit strolled down a dusty road that ended in fog. He paused at the hollow heart of the vanished town, laying flowers on a stone no one else could see. In the wind, if you listened, you could hear laughter, the ring of a hammer on wood, a preacher's prayer, and the crying of mothers. Such things do not die. They remain, spun into story, the last bulwark against oblivion. And somewhere, impossibly, a single blue candle flickered on, lighting the way for whoever else might be lost and desperate to remember. Chapter 3. Secret Expeditions, Hidden Documents, and Operation Blue Ledger. 1. The Arrival. From whisper to orders. The world outside Blackwood was not blind. From the first static-filled SOS, the matter spiraled through government ranks like wildfire. Satellite imagery, at first grainy, then glitching, showed a spreading distortion centered on the village. A blue halo, invisible to the eye but burning through infrared scans, rippled outward. Within hours, the Department of Homeland Protection convened an emergency panel. "This is not a conventional disaster," intoned Dr. Elise Rowe, chief of anomalous phenomena. "Whatever's happening in Blackwood, it's rewriting physical law." Special Agent Kieran Fox, 2 tours in intelligence and a taste for fieldwork, joined the assembled team. His face, square-jawed and shadowed by sleepless nights, betrayed none of the nervousness he felt. He was briefed quickly, but incompletely, something about dynamic spatial discontinuity, about active mimetic suppression. He nodded. When Rowe asked for volunteers, Fox stepped forward. 2. The team, assembled to investigate the operation, codenamed Blue Ledger, deployed with grim efficiency. Fox led a convoy west, roadblocks behind them, equipment packed tight, quantum spectrometers, memory stabilizers, neural recording collars. Unlike most Black Ops, this one included civilians, scientists, folklorists, even a linguist specializing in living symbols. Rowe herself rode in silence, peering out at the horizon for signs of fog. In the briefing tent, just miles from the anomaly, Fox laid out the plan. Enter Blackwood perimeter, catalog effects, rescue survivors or recover evidence. If possible, neutralize anomaly. "What if the anomaly spreads?" asked linguist Maria Packer, eyes wide. "Then we contain it with memory dampers," Rowe answered. "Or set up an exclusion zone and pray it doesn't go global." 3. Crossing the threshold. Agents suited up, biohazard gear, mysterious collars humming against their throats, backup batteries blinking in anticipation. As the convoy crept toward Blackwood, the world changed. GPS units spun in circles. Phones went dead, cameras stuttered, and watches slipped backward. As they breached the blue perimeter, they felt a pressure in their minds, a surging discomfort. Each step forward was a battle against forgetfulness, against the surreal pull of oblivion. Shadows flickered, and Agent Fox felt for a moment as though his childhood were spiraling away. Inside the village, the world felt even stranger. Time hung heavy, colors muted, geometry wrong. None of the survivors they'd hoped to find greeted them, just emptiness, occasional laughter, spectral echoes rippling through homes and streets. Their reality monitors registered multiple anomalies. Fox scribbled field notes, his hand moving almost automatically. Object persistence unstable, memory bleed increasing, local topology non-Euclidean. No contact with survivors yet. 4. The secret documents. Past incidents revealed. At headquarters, high-level officials pored over ancient files, some in handwriting, others in faded Morse code. Rowe led an archival team hunting for connections. Strange disappearances, blue glows, odd symbols, all classified, all hidden. One document from 1931 reported a vanished mining town in the Appalachians. Another from 1867 described a frontier village where memory vanished and names were lost. A declassified memo referenced the antlered watcher in dozens of cultures, spanning continents and centuries. Rowe's team discovered a chilling pattern. Every site erased from history bore the same glyphs. Strange angular marks, neither hieroglyph nor runic, as if inscribed by something not quite human. "So this has happened before," Fox said, poring over the evidence on his tablet. Rowe nodded. The anomaly moves. It waits. It tests. 5. First contact with the anomaly. On their second day, inside Blackwood's new perimeter, Fox's team set up neural anchors, devices meant to save and replay memory, as the anomaly tried to erase them. They experimented, taking Polaroids, recording voice memos, writing notes on indelible plastic. None survived more than a few hours. Voices grew garbled, faces blurred into smears of blue and white. Maria's notes on the symbols melted from the page. The group began to argue, tempers fraying as names slipped and personal histories warped. They set up a base camp in the center of what a map once labeled Main Street. There, Fox attempted a remote transmission. Only static greeted them, except beneath the noise, something else, a melody, haunting and warped, echoing the lullabies Agnes once sang. A survivor's voice, Moran's maybe, or Jim Doyle's, emerged from the blue. "Do not forget the order. Carve your name or be swallowed whole." 6. The expedition fractures. Agent Fox began nightly rounds, mapping every change in the village's architecture and routing through abandoned homes for artifacts. Every house bore a glyph, and some rooms, when opened, revealed glimpses of impossible vistas, infinite blue corridors, golden fields beneath mirror skies, an endless staircase climbing upward into smoke. 3 members of the team began to crack. Maria, her neural collar malfunctioning, forgot her own birthday. Dr. Sugi, a physicist, lost the ability to speak English for hours, chanting symbols instead. Rowe stood stoic, but ordered daily anchor checks to keep staff grounded. Fox grew obsessed. He found Agnes's burned letter and a brass compass, pried up from the floor of the chapel. When he tried to pocket it, everything around him spun. He saw his own past, flickering like a slideshow. War. lost love. His father on the bed whispering, "Forget me not." For half an hour, Fox lost track of time. 7. The government's ritual. Under Roe's direction, the team conducted a final experiment. She'd found reference in declassified papers to ritual stabilization using symbols and stories. Her hypothesis, perhaps narrative itself, repelled the void. They gathered by a bonfire, recording stories of lost towns. Each person spoke their name, their greatest memory, their sharpest pain. The blue fog recoiled momentarily. Agent Fox shouted his father's story aloud. Maria drew the glyph on her hand, chanting in 3 languages. Sugi played a tune on a found harmonica. For a brief moment, Blackwood stabilized, streets unblurring, a dog barking in the distance. But, like before, the anomaly fought back. The Watcher emerged again, antlers shimmering, voice rippling reality. "The ledger is not yours to restore," it rumbled, and the world bent inward. The expedition almost broke, and Roe ordered a fallback. "Ready the anchors. We're exiting soon, if we can." 8. Fallout and revelation. The exit proved harder than hoped. As the agents retreated, some could not remember their own mission. Files became blank. Fox collapsed, clutching the compass. Maria whispered a lost tongue. Sugi wept, for a family he wasn't sure he'd ever had. Outside the perimeter, the world returned to normal. Almost. Communications flickered, and media spun tales about chemical leaks and geological events. Blue Ledger was officially archived, sealed under 3 layers of national security. Roe, disheveled and hollow-eyed, gave her final assessment. Anomaly suppressed, not resolved. Recommend permanent memory anchor sites and global monitoring for further incidents. Fox, invalided out of service, secretly kept the brass compass. Sometimes, on sleepless nights, he spun it and dreamed of endless blue corridors and the Watcher's silent gaze. 9. The documents that never were. In the years that followed, fragments and rumors swirled. New government expeditions to odd corners of the globe. Museums quietly losing artifacts. Libraries closing wings to restoration. Those who survived Blackwood watched the news, waiting for signs. A town with too few photographs. A village where a single blue candle burned in a ruined church. Some researchers went mad from the strain. Others vanished entirely, leaving behind only a cryptic note or a scatter of blue-stained fingerprints. Whistleblowers tried in vain to leak evidence, but their files erased themselves, memories faded, and soon their stories changed, first subtly, then completely. Paranoia ran high. Some claimed the Watcher was everywhere. Others said it was the collective fear of forgetting that gave it power. 10. Operation Blue Ledger. Conclusions. Agent Fox, older and haunted, founded a private group dedicated to anomalous memory loss. They chronicled disappearances, mapped symbols, taught anchor rituals to frighten townsfolk in far-off places. Sometimes people listened. Sometimes it was too late. Roe retired, but every year on the anniversary, she burns a blue candle and writes her name, hoping the anomaly remains dormant. In a locked government vault, a blue glowing stone sits atop a pile of letters, documented but never catalogued, bearing witness to the Ledger's ongoing war against memory, story, and the fragile fate of small towns everywhere. You cannot remember what is erased, but sometimes stories fight back. Chapter 4. Unsolved Symbols and Prehistoric Technology. 1. The code beneath the bones. Long after Blackwood faded into legend, a handful of survivors, government agents, folklorists, villagers lost but not erased, became obsessed with symbols. The blue glyph, the antlered figure, the ring of mushrooms, all seemed remnants of a pattern not confined to the anomaly, but woven through the land itself. In dusty libraries and decaying barns, symbols resurfaced. Old diaries mentioned blue signs scratched in the dirt on moonless nights. Archaeologists in the far Midwest discovered stone outcroppings with near-identical carvings, dating them to 10,000 years before the village existed. One diagram, unearthed from beneath the church's old foundation, showed a sequence of shapes: a spiral, an eye, an antler, an hourglass. Some believed it a code, one intended for those facing obliteration. Others feared it was a warning from those who'd failed before. 2. The linguist's final theory. Maria Packer, plagued by memory loss since her expedition, grew fixated on the symbols. She traveled from reservation archives to European crypts, comparing glyphs found in lost towns, ancient burial mounds, and stones beneath vanished rivers. Slowly, painfully, she built a thesis. The glyphs were not just language, but memory anchors for entire communities. By inscribing, singing, or even dreaming them, people could resist erasure, if only briefly. The symbols precede all known alphabets, Maria pronounced at a gathering of secretive scholars. Their function isn't communication, but preservation. They are the immune system of story itself. Her work, published in a limited underground review, disappeared from the internet in days. Officially, it never existed. 3. The expedition to the deep chamber. Spurred by these theories, Fox and Rowe assembled a clandestine scientific team. Their goal? Find the origin of the glyphs and uncover whether lost technology, older than civilization, could preserve memory, even repulse the watcher. Guided by folklore and the compass recovered in Blackwood, they traced the symbols to a sunken valley in the northern forests. Legends called it the Deep Chamber, said to be the last safe place in an erased world. The valley was unnatural. Trees grew in perfect rings. The soil sparkled blue at dusk. Fox's compass spun wildly. Encrypted data logs blurred, filling with repeating glyphs. After days of digging, the team uncovered a stone door 70 feet wide, sealed with a message in blue quartz. Rowe, palms sweating, traced the symbols aloud. Whoever opens this must remember all things, forget nothing, set the order, or all is lost. The door cracked, releasing cold air mixed with ancient light. 4. The chamber within, the machine of memory. Inside, technology waited, something not invented, but grown. Rows of crystalline roots and golden branches pulsed gently, emitting waves of memory and song. The sound filled explorers' minds with images of a world predating mankind. Vast forests, creatures with halos of light, cities built from living glass. A trembling wave knocked Fox to his knees. He saw Blackwood, but also 1,000 erased villages, each marked by the Watcher, each failing to anchor memory. In the center of the chamber stood a pyramid, its heart woven from blue stone. Rowe pressed the symbols, activating the mechanism. Instantly, the roots sang with 1,000 voices. Lost names, stories, moments. For seconds, the explorers remembered everything: their childhoods, their ancestors, forgotten words taught by the wind. Then the machine groaned, the song souring as the anomaly probed at the edges. One expedition member vanished, erased, leaving only blue dust on the stone floor. 5. The ritual of ancient defiance. Desperate, Fox argued for reckless action. If story and memory can resist oblivion, let us amplify them. Write, chant, dream, fill the chamber with every thread of existence. The survivors acted. Maria sang local lullabies in a dozen dialects. Roe painted the glyphs on her skin, reciting Roman myths. Fox burned diaries and let the ash swirl through rivulets, reading poems he'd never dared to speak. The pyramid glowed, pulsed, seethed with memory. Every object brought from vanished towns, every word of every vanished resident joined in chorus. The fog recoiled in agony. The blue light wavered, becoming white for the first time in living memory. Outside, reality rippled. For hours, lost places appeared, a barn, a pond, a portrait flickering in the wind. But for each recovered memory, another risked erasure, as the anomaly hunted for weak links. 6. The technology fights back. The chamber's machine reached maximum intensity, then buckled under the attack. Roots splintered, crystal branches cracked, as the watcher's voice bellowed from above. You cannot cling to what is lost. The ledger must clear. But the symbols held. The survivors, bloodied but defiant, wove stories into the chamber's circuitry, fusing myth and memory with ancient code. Maria's anchor theory became action. She ordered everyone to tattoo the glyph on their bodies. So even if minds faded, flesh remembered. Fox held up his father's compass, spinning its needle until it glowed red and blue. When reality wavered, he pressed the compass to the crystal and shouted a litany of names. The watcher tried, and failed, to erase what had become legend. 7. Visions of an older world. With technology stabilized, or so they hoped, the chamber opened its deepest vault. There, surviving records projected scenes for all. Towns saved from oblivion, others lost in blue fog forever. Glimpses of prehistoric cities, shimmering in alternate dimensions. The explorers saw the Watcher's true nature, an auditor of existence, neither evil nor kind, tasked with pruning the ledger, but powerless against those who hold tight to memory. It is not annihilation, but renewal, Roe told the group. If we remember, if we anchor, we transcend. Yet many disappeared into new existences, some erased, some reborn. Fox found himself somehow speaking with Jim Doyle, not as a ghost, but as a comrade across time. Names surged around them, a torrent of story keeping the anomaly at bay. 8. Rebirth and revelation. As dawn broke in the deep chamber, survivors emerged changed. Worlds flickered in and out of existence, but stories, they knew now, could be weapon and shield. Some left to tell their tales. Symbols inked on skin. Diaries coded in glyph. Ballads mixing the old tongue and the new. Maria finally understood the oldest song in the chamber. How the first humans sang to remember the sun. How monsters retreated when stories were strong. How symbols, carried by wind and memory, saved villages from the Watcher's final gaze. Some stayed behind, guarding the chamber. Their memories, forever tied to its circuits, became part of the chain protecting all future towns from oblivion. 9. The legacy. By the time the expedition returned to civilization, the blue fog had retreated. News called it a meteorological event, but everyone involved knew better. Museums quietly relocated any artifact inscribed with the glyph. Libraries began archiving oral histories, knowing that a forgotten story was more dangerous than any weapon. Maria, Fox, Roe, all wrote their stories, encoded their names, burned blue candles each year. Some chapters remained secret, some lost, but the movement grew. Preservation against anomaly, resistance through memory. the deep chamber became legend. Travelers told tales of its symbols. Mothers taught lullabies embedding the glyph. Children traced the spiral and hourglass in the sand. 10. The eternal warning: remember or be erased. In the end, none could promise the anomaly would never return. But as long as one story was sung, one name etched, one child dreaming in glyphs, humanity had a fighting chance. If you find yourself in the blue fog, hunted by silence, pressed by oblivion, remember these words, these symbols, this ritual. Anchor yourself to memory, fuse story and technology. Resist the hollowing out of existence, for the watcher waits, the ledger hungers. But the code endures, and the torch of story will always light the way, no matter how deep the darkness. Chapter 5. Modern Investigations. Can the truth be found, and why does it terrify us? 1. Prologue. The New Generation. Decades after the Blackwood anomaly, whispers about the vanished town drift through podcasts, late-night forums, and conspiracy documentaries. Young investigators, part of the underground memory resistance, sift through rumors and encrypted files, seeking the truth. Leading them is Vera Lynn, once a government cyber analyst, now a renegade archivist. She collects data fragments, voice interviews, coded texts, insisting the future of memory itself is at stake. Every year, near the date Blackwood vanished, her impromptu team gathers in secret, burning blue candles, swearing not to forget. 2. The Revival. Chasing clues. Vera's team is diverse: tech hacker Jay Patel, folklore scholar Anya Mirov, video journalist Marcus Green, retired Agent Fox, now gray, haunted, but determined. They follow a new pattern. Scattered towns report digital glitches. Blue glows flicker on baby monitors. People forget birthdays, then whole families. The Resistance launches expeditions equipped with upgraded memory anchors, digital and psychic. They test posting stories embedded with glyphs. Sometimes YouTube videos survive the anomaly for a few extra hours before deletion. They visit towns where blue symbols suddenly appear on walls and doors. Sometimes, with quick story sharing, the towns are saved. The anomaly recedes, if only for a week. More often, the places become ghosts in the cloud, erased from GPS, unmapped on Google Earth, remembered only in dreams. 3. An investigator's nightmare. One year, Vera receives a burnt USB stick titled From Blackwood. Inside scrambled footage, fragments of the old expedition's field logs, and a message from Maria Packer, her voice distorted by static. You must never open the blue door. If you see the Watcher, do not speak its name. Anchor yourselves to story. Buy time for the others. If you fail, we all fail. He is coming. Marcus overlays the glyphs on his latest documentary. For an hour, social media fills with survivors' stories, townspeople resisting erasure together. But the anomaly adapts, corrupting hashtags, replacing footage with blue static and the Watcher's antlered shadow. Team morale falters. Jay forgets his mother's voice. Anya dreams of timelines where she never existed. Fox realizes the Watcher is learning, hungry for modern data and digital memory, just as it consumed letters and faces long ago. 4. Science and myth. Intersect Vera's group contacts cryptographers and neuroscientists, searching for logic in the madness. They discover patterns in EEG readings from survivors. The blue anomaly disrupts synaptic memory, creating feedback loops that erase not just images, but emotion. But Anya posits a parallel. Every tale, every song laced with glyphs, creates a memory resonance measurable on advanced scanners. The anomaly flickers and weakens in these fields. They experiment publicly, world-spanning live streams, each participant chanting an ancient symbol, sharing personal stories. At the height of an international anchor ritual, the anomaly buckles citywide, then surges back, deleting servers, erasing terabytes, leaving only a single blue spiral in digital ash. P. The return to roots. Desperate, Vera proposes a return to the deep chamber. Her team retraces old expeditions, following Maria's final hints, now partly decoded thanks to new AI and linguistic breakthroughs. En route, they encounter echoes of the past, spectral glimpses of Maria, Ro, and the first survivors, bound to the glyphs burning at the valley's edge. Each visit, the terrain shifts. What was stone last year is now glass. What was a grove becomes placeless dark. Inside the chamber, Fox feels time unwind. He sees himself as a young man, as an old, then as a child in his father's arms, clutching a compass. Vera leads the group in a circle, chanting symbols, recounting every forgotten story they've saved from Blackwood and a dozen lost towns. The chamber's machine stirs, its memory technology now alive with the sum of centuries. The group realizes this is no artifact, but a living archive, needing stories to survive, needing rememberers as much as they need its protection. 6. Face to face with the anomaly. As their voices rise, the fog thickens. The Watcher manifests at the heart of the chamber, antlers brushing the blue-lit ceiling. Its eyes are fathomless, reflecting every lost thing, faces, words, worlds. It approaches, not with malice, but with ineffable gravity. Who holds the ledger now? It intones. A question, a challenge, a threat. Vera steps forward, presenting a journal filled with town names, glyphs, coded poems, and digital pictures, all anchored to surviving memory. "We are the ledger," she replies. "We are string and ink and stream and song. We remember, and so do you." The Watcher pauses. The anomaly's hunger crashes against the archive's strength. For a heartbeat, the world quivers. Blue fire ripples along the chamber walls. The Watcher's shadow flickers. "You must face forgetting. But as long as one remembers, there is no end," it murmurs, and then, almost gentle, retreats into the fog beyond time. 7. The fractured victory. The anomaly recedes, the chamber stabilizes. Reality on the outside heals. Erased towns faintly reappear on maps, old photographs regain faces, and the Resistance's tales ripple across digital and spoken world. But the truth terrifies. Fox warns, "Every generation faces its Watcher. Every culture risks erasure, by time, by loss, by silence. The chamber will hold as long as memory is nurtured, as long as stories outpace forgetting." Vera publishes their saga to every platform, encoded with glyphs. Each download a faint blue light across the world's map. For each reader, a fragment of Blackwood survives. Some will forget, some will lose the thread, but not all. 8. The Candle of Memory. Every year, at the anniversary of Blackwood's disappearance, blue candles light windows on every continent. Survivors, students, dreamers, each awakening to the fragile, beautiful power of the story. Vera, now older, guards the deep chamber. Jay and Marcus lead new teams, passing on anchor rituals through augmented reality and song. Maria's spectral voice sometimes answers from the archive. To forget is human, to remember divine. The Watcher still haunts the edge of existence, scribing and erasing, patient and inevitable. But its power now finds resistance in every child who draws the spiral, every elder who sings the old song, every hard drive backed up with encrypted glyphs. 9. Epilogue. Endings and beginnings. In an age threatened by the blue tide, the digital dark, the hollowing algorithm, the epidemic of forgetting, Blackwood's legacy is clear. Memory is a weapon, story a victory. Each telling, each ritual, each act of remembrance forms a bulwark against oblivion. Perhaps that is why this story persists. Why you, reader or listener or dreamer, hold a flicker of blue in the shadows of your own mind. In the ledger of existence, nothing truly disappears as long as someone is willing to remember, retell, and anchor. Chapter 6. The Infinite Echo. Legacy, Myth, and the Edge of Reality. 1. The first dreamers. Long before Blackwood, before archives and electricity, before the Watcher even had a name, people dreamed. Caves deep in northern stone held spirals and antlers scratched on walls, blue handprints signaling pact or warning. Tribal fires burned bright against endless night as the elders told of skywalkers, beings coming with fog to demand memory in return for harvest, rain, or just a single continued day. In every era, stories descend. A mother teaching her child the glyph lullaby, an old man mumbling antler words over sick crops, a wanderer waking to find part of her world erased. Each time, a ritual, a story, a song, a marking, saves a handful, warns a tribe, carves the beginning of resistance. The anomaly is patient. It returns again and again, always feeding on what is lost, always challenged by the audacity of remembering. 2. The Blue Plague rises. Modernity has no patience for folklore. It rushes forward seeking speed and data, discarding old protections. But every leap in knowledge creates new dangers. It begins with children in Tokyo dreaming the Watcher's face, programmers in Sao Paulo coding spirals unconsciously into AI. A Parisian archivist finds part of her city's census vanished, and a monastery in Mongolia uncovers empty books. Diaries erased but for a single blue dot. The anomaly mutates, spreading through networks. It rides waves of QR codes, filters and memes, jumps from viral video to private email. Vera's surviving resistance becomes global, fighting blue outbreaks with new glyphs, local songs, emergent AI poets trained on lost stories. Yet for every save, the Watcher adapts. It erases TikTok dances and viral fonts, replaces trending tags with blue static and silence. More and more, forgotten neighborhoods blank into non-existence, mourned by those who have no idea what they've lost. 3. The Council of Rememberers. To face the apocalypse, Vera and her network unite scholars, shamans, hackers, linguists, and even defected agents of the original Blue Ledger project. They call a secret council at the ruined Deep Chamber, the site now a nexus where all timelines bleed and merge. Attendance is a ritual. Each participant must recite their oldest known story, draw their version of the glyph, and offer a sacrifice, a memory, a song, something precious and real. Some lose a favorite scent, others forget their first pet. A few lose the taste of coffee. But in this gathering, their collective stories create a spell too dense for the anomaly to breach, at least temporarily. Here, Marcus records the greatest open podcast of all time, a 3-day ceremony mixing myth, coded tales, loss, and urgent warnings. Hacked into streaming sites worldwide, the signal briefly immunizes millions against forgetting, giving everyone a memory anchor, however transient. 4. When worlds collide. During the Council's work, a rift opens within the chamber, a vision, or perhaps a visitation from countless lost towns, villages swallowed by fog. The audience sees spectral children, spectral elders, spectral lovers forced into exile by erasure. Some weep, some step through the rift to deliver stories and glyphs back to their own lifelines. There is a sense of an ancient test, played over and over, the anomaly reshaping itself, cycling through reality, each iteration more complex and cunning. DNA, folklore, even math. Every mode of human continuity collides with the blue, sometimes bending, sometimes breaking. The watcher appears, simultaneously furious and sorrowful. "You build cages of memory," it says, voice like wind through trees. "But even cages rust. Can you create something truly eternal?" A child answers, "A song never dies, while one voice remains." 5. Thresholds. Returning from the edge. Bold volunteers from the council travel into hexed zones, places where memory is weakest, at the edges of cities or within glitch forests. Guided by the glyph, they anchor through performance, street plays, whispered oral history, new forms of art scrawled into concrete and digital code. Each time, the watcher's hunger grows more desperate, more cunning. Now it negotiates, offering power or solace in exchange for silence. Some betray the council, seeking oblivion, asking for the blue peace promised by forgetting. Some disappear forever. Some linger in the borderland, part phantom, part rememberer. Vera's last, greatest experiment is to upload herself into a distributed memory network, her stories, joys, failures seeded in billions of machines, spread like pollen. For a moment, the anomaly pauses. It cannot erase all at once. 6. The dying and the resurrection. A final cataclysm, the blue fog overruns the largest city yet. Within hours, all news, all records, all names are replaced by cold spirals and white silence. Vera's group frantically deploys ink bombs, bursts of mass storytelling in every language, every medium. A global blackout looms. Humanity's ledger flickers, one heartbeat from oblivion. Then, an uprising. Children chanting the glyph at bedtime. Elders cross-hatching spirals in old notebooks. A symphony of spoken-word poems, translated into 1,000 dialects, surges through the net. The watcher, cornered and overwhelmed, splits and multiplies, fracturing into a choir of blue shadows, each one hunting a different remnant. But everywhere, new story cells form, united by resistance, inventing their own glyphs. Even AI memory, now barnacled with legend and ritual, becomes a shield. 7. The price of defiance. The cost is terrible. Whole generations lose decades. Languages wither. Some, choosing oblivion, walk into the blue and are never seen again. Yet the ledger, battered and wild, remains mostly intact. At the council's close, elders weep for those lost and those saved. The watcher, weary, leaves a final message carved in electric aurora. Remember us, for we cannot remember ourselves. The myth becomes religion, then legend, then just a story, as some humans, some machines, some fragments of the world hold on. 8. Epilogue. An infinite future. In time, the blue anomaly recedes to the realm of cautionary tale. Children know the glyph, mothers sing it, digital assistants echo myth, back in comforting tones. The deep chamber becomes a school, a sanctuary, a generator of stories old and new. Some nights, the watcher is glimpsed at the world's edge, no longer a threat, but a warning and a witness. For after all, the anomaly was never merely a force of destruction, but a challenger, reminding the living of what it means to be alive, to love and lose, to struggle against oblivion. Vera lives on in story and echo, her laughter in the chamber, her last warning chiseled into the code. What you remember no one can take away. In the end, only those who forget are truly lost. The infinite echo endures, and the saga never ends. Chapter 7. The Last Trial. Echoes at the End of Time. 1. The Watcher's Ultimatum. As centuries blur, the Watcher lingers, not enemy nor ally, but the persistent examiner of existence. Now it returns with a final challenge. It appears in dreams and code, shadows on skyscraper glass, pulses in old radios. All across the world, every medium flickers blue. Phones, sky, water, even dreams. A voice rings out, not in words, but ineffable command. One final trial awaits. Vera's legacy, the memory resistance, and every anchor society, scholar, storyteller, and child feel a tremor in their soul. One last test before the ledger closes or resets. 2. Gathering at the deep chamber, the last conclave. 100 emissaries reach the deep chamber, some young, some ancient, many not entirely human anymore. Marcus, wrinkled and wise, leads with Jay, Anya, and a host of survivors bearing stories as talismans. For weeks, they prepare. Hidden speakers broadcast the glyph. Musicians compose new anchor songs. Digital flames flicker across every continent. Even AIs now blooming with myth participate, streaming new legend to a million nodes. But this gathering is more than ritual. The Watcher itself walks among them, sometimes masked, sometimes not, sometimes a figure with antlers, sometimes a flickering code construct. It listens. 3. Ritual of 1,000 stories. One by one, voices rise, tales of vanished cities, lost languages, small acts of heroism, accidental inventions, forbidden loves. Children describe dreams where every forgotten toy sings. Elders confess to moments before death, where a story was all that remained. Anya paints the blue glyph on her face and recounts how, once, her own line nearly blinked out. Marcus weaves audio-visual montages, waves of memory flowing into the chamber's ancient machine. Each story, each symbol, brightens the world. The anomaly stutters, sometimes regressing, sometimes advancing, never pausing. A visitor from Morocco tells of blue men who defeat oblivion with impossible music. A Maori singer intones chants that collapse the distance between past and future. A synthesized voice, the first AI rememberer, writes a poem whose stanzas echo in quantum code and heart alike. 4. The Watcher's final question. At the ritual's height, the Watcher addresses the gathering for the first and only time without threat or enigma. Why should you exist? Why resist the peace of forgetting? Answer not for glory, but for truth. Thunderous silence falls. For days, now blurred, now endless, delegates debate. Is it suffering that proves worth? Is it invention, joy, or simply the stunning refusal of loss? Vera's voice, still echoing in algorithm and memory, offers a reply. To be alive is to remember, and to remember is to love. Love again, love anew, love what might be lost. Oblivion is no peace. We are not meant only to fade. The chamber trembles. The Watcher bows. 5. The age of unending story. The world does not end. Instead, it blooms. Anchors are taught to every child. Rituals, some ancient, some algorithmic, are enacted in every corner. The Watcher becomes both god and guardian, an icon on shrines and in logic gates, worshipped, feared, honored. Cities design memory gardens, places set aside to keep not just facts, but oddities, secrets, the silly and sublime. People trade stories like currency. Dreams bounce through the mesh of the chamber's network. Each story is a defense. New anomalies arise, but never like before. The balance is restored, the watcher forever present, sometimes testing, sometimes reminding, always prompting one more retelling. A million small towns host their own deep chambers. Even in deep space, explorers etch glyphs into metal and upload tales before every jump. 6. The last sacrifice. The ultimate price is not death, but the pain of holding what is lost. Some still choose blue oblivion, tired of remembering, seeking silence. The chamber welcomes them gentle now, recording their final thoughts as warnings and songs. No one is forced to recall, but so long as even one resists, the ledger holds. Vera, drifting in metaconsciousness, reaches the anomaly's edge and finds her father, long gone, but not erased. In a goodbye both sweet and searing, she realizes the ledger is not merely a record, but a bridge, that through story, all divides can be crossed for a moment. 7. Epilogue. Story is the infinite torch. And so the new world finds peace in the dance of remembering and forgetting. Perhaps this is only the latest turning, one of many. Maybe the watcher will test another world, another age, another sapient dream. But somewhere always the glyph endures, the chamber pulses. A child draws a spiral and sings. A machine hums an ancient poem in binary. Someone somewhere retells these very words. The ledger does not close. This is not truly the end. After all, if you are reading, hearing, or dreaming this story, then you are already a rememberer. Welcome to the Order.